Welcome to the deep dive. We take your sources, we dig through them, and we pull out the key insights, basically giving you a shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today, we're diving into something challenging but, well, really important. The inner circle around Adolf Hitler. We're talking about figures like Göring, Goebbels, Himmler, Ribbentrop. The main players. We'll be using detailed accounts, bits from Wikipedia on Hitler, Anthony Reid's The Devil's Disciples, and also some insights on foreign policy from the Holocaust Encyclopedia.
Yeah, and our mission today isn't just to list what happened because, well, many know the broad strokes. It's about how the personalities, the ambitions, the often contradictory loyalties of these guys really shaped things.
Shaped one of the most destructive periods in history.
Exactly. So you'll hopefully get a deeper feel for the dynamics inside the Nazi regime itself. It wasn't just one man, you know.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's get into the surprising facts, the personal dramas behind that chilling rise to power, and of course, its terrible consequences. So to get the inner circle, you really have to start with Hitler himself, right? Understand where he came from and how he built his power base.
Absolutely. Born in Austria, Braunau am Inn, part of Austria-Hungary then. Moved to Germany in 1913.
And his World War I service was pretty significant, too. Decorated, got the Iron Cross.
And what's really telling, even back then, are those early German nationalist ideas. He felt loyalty only to Germany, not the Habsburg monarchy in Austria, which he kind of despised.
I think a lot of Austrian Germans at the time, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. He and his friends were already using the Heil greeting, singing the Deutschlandlied, the German anthem, instead of the Austrian one. It shows you how deep those nationalist feelings ran well before the Nazi Party was even a thing.
And then his move into politics seems, well, surprisingly fast.
Yeah.
He joins the German Workers' Party in 1919.
Which became the Nazi Party.
Right, and he's leader just 2 years later, 1921.
And his core ideas were pretty much locked in by then. Attacking the Versailles Treaty, pushing pan-Germanism, and of course the intense anti-Semitism and anti-communism.
He kept linking communism to this idea of an international Jewish conspiracy, didn't he?
Constantly. That was a core theme, right from the start.
So with those ideas solidifying, he makes his first big move, the Beer Hall Putsch in Munich, 1923.
Which failed spectacularly. A chaotic coup attempt landed him in prison.
But that prison time turned out to be incredibly important.
Hugely significant. That's where he dictated the first volume of Mein Kampf. His autobiography, yes, but also his political manifesto.
Basically laying out his whole worldview and, well, his terrifying plans for the future. It became the blueprint.
Exactly. And then he gets out early, after about a year of his 5-year sentence in 1924.
And this time, he changes tactics. No more violent coups, for now anyway. Instead, it's about building popular support, right? Using charisma, propaganda.
Precisely. Setting the stage for his key allies, his inner circle, to really emerge and gather around him.
And this is where you see that magnetic, almost scary pull Hitler had. Take Hermann Göring, decorated war hero, fighter ace from World War I.
Commanded the Richthofen Squadron, the Red Baron's old unit, an elite guy. What was it about someone like that, that pulled him so completely into Hitler's orbit?
That's the question, isn't it? His loyalty seems almost obsessive. He told Hjalmar the banker, "Every time I stand before the Führer, my heart falls into my trousers."
Wow. That's quite a statement.
And when they took power in 1933, he said no title made him happier than being called the most faithful paladin of the Führer. He was right there at the Beer Hall Putsch, too. Fired his pistol into the ceiling.
Tried to calm the crowd down, right, saying it wasn't against the army or police.
But against the wretched Jews in Berlin. And then, almost comically, "Anyway, what are you worrying about? You got your beer."
Incredible. He actually got injured in that push, didn't he? Had to flee to Sweden?
He did. But that early, unwavering loyalty, even after the failure, clearly cemented his place.
So Göring's the military man. Then you have Joseph Goebbels coming from a totally different angle.
Yeah, he wanted to be a writer originally.
Yeah.
Wrote poetry, articles. Apparently he was really into Oswald Spengler, The Decline of the West.
And here's a really strange bit. He actually described himself early on as a German communist. Can you believe that?
The German communist.
Yeah.
How does that square with Nazism?
Well, he saw this common ground, this fight for freedom against the bourgeoisie, he said. But the key difference for him was nationalism versus internationalism, which he called that Jewish conspiracy.
So nationalism was the dividing line.
Right. He even wrote something like, "It would be better for us to go down with Bolshevism than live in eternal slavery under capitalism." It's pretty jarring, isn't it?
It really is. So how did Hitler win him over so completely? Goebbels wrote about their first meeting in his diary, didn't he?
He did. It sounds almost like a schoolboy crush. We drive to Hitler. He is having his meal. He jumps to his feet. There he is, shakes my hand. Just that simple encounter seemed to floor him.
But that admiration didn't mean Hitler treated his ideas gently. There was that Bamberg meeting.
Ah, yes, 1926. Crucial moment. Hitler basically tore Goebbels' ideas apart, asserted his absolute authority, declared the 1920 party program was, quote, the foundation of our religion, our ideology.
So loyalty was demanded, but also total ideological submission.
Absolutely, even from someone as intelligent and initially independent-minded as Goebbels.
Then there's Heinrich Himmler. His early goals were quite different again.
Yeah, he just wanted to be an army officer. Politics wasn't really his thing at first. He was pretty disappointed when the armistice after World War I stopped him getting his commission.
He went to some right-wing meetings, the Bayerische Volkspartei.
But no real driving political ambition initially, it seems. Although there is one quite chilling little diary entry from 1922 after the Rathenau assassination.
Oh. What did it say?
Just Organization C. Dreadful if everything should become known. Organization C was a far-right paramilitary group involved in assassinations. So it suggests maybe an early awareness or even some level of involvement in that shadowy world.
Interesting. Okay, so these figures are gathering. Meanwhile, the Nazi Party itself is gaining ground.
Right. By November 1932, they have the most seats in the Reichstag. Not a majority, but the biggest party.
And then comes the crucial moment. Franz von Papen, other conservatives. They persuade President Hindenburg to appoint Hitler as chancellor. January 30th, 1933.
A truly fateful day, and things moved incredibly fast after that. The Reichstag passes the Enabling Act,
Which basically hands Hitler dictatorial powers. Goodbye, Weimar Republic. Hello, Nazi Germany.
a one-party state. Hitler consolidates power rapidly, becomes Führer und Reichskanzler, leader and chancellor by 1934.
All political opposition stamped out, even their coalition partners, the DNVP, forced to disband.
And this consolidation gets brutal. The Night of the Long Knives, June 1934, Hitler purges the SA leadership.
His own stormtroopers. Gernstrom, Bergerstrasser, even former Chancellor von Schleicher. Ruthless.
Absolutely ruthless. The world was shocked, but it's fascinating that, according to the sources, many in Germany believed Hitler was restoring order.
That acceptance of brutality is chilling in itself.
It really is. It tells you a lot about the climate of the time.
So Hitler's grip is tight. Now his lieutenants start carving out their own power bases. Göring comes back from Sweden in 28.
But Hitler's apparently a bit cool towards him at first, doesn't really need a flying ace anymore. And there were rumors about Göring's drug issues, specifically morphine addiction from his putsch injury.
But Göring finds a way back in, doesn't he? Starts using his connections.
Oh, yeah. Works Berlin high society, becomes an agent for BMW Aero engines, finds ways to be useful.
And he uses his wife Karen's Swedish money to help the party. Even lends Hitler his Mercedes for an SA parade.
Right. And once Hitler's chancellor, Göring's rise is meteoric. President of the Reichstag takes control of the police in Prussia, the biggest state in Germany. Huge power grab, with Hitler's blessing.
And the grandiosity kicks in big time.
Doesn't it just, he starts signing himself minister president, dropping the era of Prussia, sees himself as the successor to the king of Prussia, even head of the Protestant church.
It's almost caricature, but it shows how inflated their egos became.
Absolutely. Power corrupting, absolutely. And very quickly. His lifestyle becomes famously lavish, too. Collecting jewels, getting Albert Speer to redo his house.
Making it like the Führer's place, with money no object.
And he pulls off these little political stunts, like flying off to King Alexander of Yugoslavia's funeral without checking with Hitler, then smoothing it over by saying no German hand was involved in the assassination, always maneuvering.
Meanwhile, Goebbels is rising, too, but through different means. Propaganda, basically.
Master of deception, indeed. He earned that nickname, Chief Bandit of Berlin, with really provocative tactics. Led a march through a communist area, got badly beaten up for his trouble.
And he organized that famous disruption of the film All Quiet on the Western Front.
Pure chaos tactics. Shouting, whistling, letting loose white mice, stink bombs. Got the film pulled for being a threat to Germany's honor.
His big moment, maybe, was January 30th, 1933, Hitler's appointment.
His finest hour, as the source calls it. He does this live radio broadcast, forces stations to carry it, even uses fake interviews, starts his job as the regime's chief mouthpiece, basically with a lie.
His personal life sounds pretty complicated, too.
Yeah.
Marriage to Magda Quandt,
Described as beautiful, charming, well-bred, but also politically naive. And then Goebbels has this affair with the Czech film star Lita Barova.
Which nearly broke up his marriage, right? Magda had her own affair.
Yeah, and Hitler himself stepped in, ordered Goebbels to drop Barova, saved the marriage, told him his career depended on it. It shows that very personal level of control Hitler had.
And it wasn't just personal life. Goebbels shifted his artistic views to match Hitler's, too. Attacked modern art as cultural Bolshevism.
Despite apparently admiring some of it earlier, shows you the pressure to conform. But he also had influence on Hitler, persuaded him to run for president in '32 when others advised against it.
Still, there was friction. Goebbels complaining privately about Goring's lifestyle.
Oh yeah, that diary entry. Fat Goring should go without his caviar for once. Makes me want to throw up. You see those resentments simmering under the surface.
And then there's Himmler, quietly, methodically building his power base.
The systematizer of terror takes control of the SS delegation at the Nuremberg rallies, a symbolic but important step.
And crucially, he sets up and controls the Gestapo, the secret police. Appoints Reinhard Heydrich.
Which gave him terrifying power, and you see hints of the future horrors early on. That incident in October '38, rounding up 15,000 Polish Jews.
Forcing them across the border, whipping and beating them.
And Himmler saw it as a valuable rehearsal for future operations on a grander scale. Chillingly matter-of-fact about it, just logistics in his mind.
He managed to gain Hitler's trust, too, enough to let him build up the Verfügungstruppe.
The VT? Yeah. Basically a private army within the SS. He sold it to the regular army as just an extension of the SS police role, but it was much more than that. A key step in building his own independent force.
Okay, one more key figure in this pre-war period. Joachim von Ribbentrop, the diplomat.
Or maybe the diplomat of deception. She wasn't highly regarded by the professionals, was he?
No. Neurath, the foreign minister, apparently called him a total amateur, threatened to quit if Ribbentrop was made state secretary.
Tells you something. Yet, he ends up playing a huge role in foreign policy. Negotiates the Anglo-German naval agreement in '35, later becomes foreign minister himself.
His big achievements, the Pact of Steel with Italy in May '39.
A military alliance, though the source says he basically duped them into signing with false promises that there would be no immediate war, deception again.
And then the really big one, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, August '39.
The non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union.
Yep.
And that secret protocol to carve up Poland, absolutely crucial for enabling the invasion.
Apparently Ribbentrop felt quite at home in Moscow. Said it was like being among old party comrades.
Which reportedly did not go down well with the actual old Nazi party comrades back in Berlin. Shows maybe a certain naivete or just cynical opportunism on his part.
But Hitler was impressed for a time. Called him a second Bismarck.
High praise indeed. But all this diplomacy, all these pacts, were really just paving the way for Hitler's ultimate goal. Lebensraum.
Living space.
Conquering territory in Poland and the Soviet Union.
Enslaving or driving out the Slavic people and making sure the Jews disappear entirely. This was the core objective. It wasn't hidden.
So German rearmament goes into overdrive. Then the Anschluss in '38, annexing Austria.
Then the Czechoslovakia crisis. Munich Agreement, September '38. Sudetenland handed over.
But Hitler wasn't satisfied.
Not at all. Almost immediately, he decides to smash Czechoslovakia by military action, which he does in March '39, tearing up the Munich Pact. Shows appeasement was futile.
And Hitler's focus shifts. England is our enemy, he says. A showdown is a matter of life and death. He even predicted a long war, 10 to 15 years. Chilling foresight, in a way.
So, the final moves before Poland. Ribbentrop misreads the British.
Thinks they'll back down again. Hitler hits Chamberlain with bigger demands. Then there's that military parade in Berlin.
Where the public shows a distinct lack of enthusiasm for war.
Which apparently bothered Hitler, but didn't deter him one bit. He pushed ahead.
So September 1st, 1939, war begins. And this shifts everything, including the dynamics within that inner circle. Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union in June '41.
A massive gamble. Breaking the pact with Stalin. Goring was dead set against it, wasn't he?
Apparently argued desperately with Hitler for 8 hours straight.
Yeah.
Thought he'd actually succeeded.
Yeah, told his generals, thank God no war with Russia. Then, 2 days later, Hitler just changes his mind again, shows who was really in charge. Goring's influence had limits.
The initial attack was devastating, though. Luftwaffe destroyed huge numbers of Soviet planes on day one.
Around 1,200, the source says. But initial success wasn't enough. Hitler starts interfering with military strategy.
Like diverting tanks away from Moscow towards Leningrad and Kiev.
A hugely controversial decision caused a crisis among the generals. Many historians see it as a key reason the Moscow offensive failed. It's Hitler's personal will overriding military logic.
Going back a bit, the Battle of Britain in 1940. That was Goring's show, wasn't it? He was very confident.
Overconfident. Thought the RAF was on the ropes, would collapse in 2 weeks.
But the RAF fought back hard. Luftwaffe losses were huge.
Staggering. Nearly 1,300 German planes lost between mid-August and mid-September 40, compared to under 800 for the RAF. A major defeat for Goring and the Luftwaffe.
Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain, gets canceled.
Right, but Goring doesn't give up on air power. He just shifts tactics to the Blitz, trying to bomb Britain into submission.
As the war expands, so does the horror of the Holocaust. Himmler's role becomes even more central.
Hitler puts him in charge of the whole removal and replacement of Jews and Poles, sets up that chillingly named organization, the RKFDV.
Reich Commissariat for the Consolidation of German Nationhood.
Basically, the agency for racial purification. Himmler issues memos demanding the complete resettlement of Jews from places like the Warsaw Ghetto by the end of 1942.
Resettlement, meaning deportation to death camps like Treblinka. Over 300,000 from Warsaw alone.
And then there are the Einsatzgruppen, the mobile killing units, machine gunning tens of thousands. Babi Yar in Kiev, over 33,000 Jews murdered in 2 days.
And the industrialization of murder. Developing Zyklon B gas for the chambers at Auschwitz-Birkenau.
Deemed highly satisfactory after tests. It's just the absolute depth of calculated inhumanity, systematized terror, as you said.
Inside the regime, as the war starts to turn against Germany, the power struggles get even worse.
Oh, yeah. Martin Bormann rises, pushing out Rudolf Hess as Hitler's right-hand man. Hitler found Hess mentally draining, apparently.
And the rivalries between Goring, Goebbels, Himmler, Bormann, they intensify.
Goring hated Bormann, called him that pig. Real venom there.
And Albrecht Speer comes into prominence, armaments minister.
He massively boosts production arms up 300%, tanks 600%. Outmaneuvers Goring, who was jealous, but Speer delivered results, which mattered more to Hitler as things got desperate.
But even Speer couldn't always stop Hitler's meddling, like canceling the Me-262 jet fighter.
The fastest plane in the world, Hitler insisted he only wanted bombers, overruled Goring's top priority order for the jet. Just short-sighted, strategically disastrous interference.
Goring himself seemed to despair, blaming his own pilots for incompetence.
When he knew the real issue was lack of resources and Hitler's bad decisions, a sign of his declining influence and perhaps desperation.
Interestingly, later in the war, Goebbels and Goring actually team up.
Yeah, an unlikely alliance targeting Bormann and Ribbentrop, blaming them for the war going wrong. The blame game was in full swing.
The end comes closer. Allied bombing starts hitting Berlin hard, even the Chancellery bunker in early 45.
And Himmler makes that bizarre, deluded attempt to negotiate peace with the West behind Hitler's back.
Thought he'd be more acceptable than Hitler. Utterly disconnected from reality.
Completely. He got sacked for it, of course. Shows how desperate and delusional some of them became.
Goring's end is ignominious too. Arrested for high treason on Bormann's orders.
Yeah.
Accused of trying to grab power as the Reich crumbled.
While Hitler is marrying Eva Braun in the bunker, preparing for the end.
And the final fate of these men. Ribbentrop hanged at Nuremberg, but it was botched. Took ages for him to die.
Horrific. And Goring cheats the hangman, takes cyanide the night before his scheduled execution.
Their ashes, along with others, just poured into a muddy ditch somewhere. A bleak end for men who wielded such world-shattering power.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How much of this catastrophe was driven not just by ideology, but by these deeply flawed individuals, their vanities, their rivalries, their personal ambitions. They weren't just following orders, they were actively shaping events.
So what's the takeaway for you listening? I think it's a stark reminder, isn't it? How individual personalities, even inside a rigid top-down system like Nazi Germany, can have such immense, in this case, utterly destructive influence.
Right. It's not just about the big historical forces. It's also about the people, their flaws, their relationships.
It really makes you question how much history is driven by these personal dynamics, maybe more than we sometimes admit.
Exactly. Which leads to that final thought. In any system where power isn't checked, how much does the fate of millions hang on the personal chemistry, the ambitions, the paranoia, the loyalty or disloyalty among the few at the very top? Maybe far more than any official policy or grand plan. It's definitely something to think about. A chilling thought, really.